did?
We're smart, and my...
He told me enough.
No, I. Here's Chuck.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am back with a brand new Underrated Gems review. The first Underrated Gems episode since Click last summer. And yeah, I finally decided to bring it back with a family movie I have long wanted to talk about from my childhood. This is one I am very happy to talk about, because I have always loved this movie since I was a kid. I thought it was always a childhood classic that deserved some more attention. And it was based off a book by E.B. White. There were 3 E.B. White adaptations. 2 were live action. Well, technically speaking, that other live action one was technically the second adaptation because one of the novels got 2 adaptations. The one about the spider. One got an animated adaptation from Richard something that bombed and no one liked. It had a swan and a trumpet. Nobody saw it. It bombed at the box office. Nobody liked it. And then there was also one that didn't really get a complete ending. It was about a mouse that was born from a human woman. Gross. Met a bird. That bird ran off. That mouse pretty much left home to look for the bird. Spent the whole journey nowhere. Then found a girl. And then tried to take her on a date. The boat got wrecked, and he threw a tantrum over it. And then it ended with him driving off alone on the road. Because sadly, it didn't really get to be completed, because E.B. White pretty much died writing this book. So unfortunately, the book didn't really get to have a complete ending. However, it then this one got the film adaptation. It was the second to get a film adaptation following the 1973 animated Charlotte's Web movie. And this one had a bit more of a complete ending and a more realistic kind of plot. And that film was going to be for none other than 1999's Stuart Little, which was directed by Rob Minkoff, the co-director of The Lion King. And also the director of that shitty Haunted Mansion movie starring Eddie Murphy. He did after this. But, yeah. So this one also stars legendary voice actor Michael J. Fox. So what's the plot of this movie? Well, in New York City, you would come across a small house home to a family known as the Littles. You have to think of them as the nicest family you'd ever meet. Then one day, the 2 parents, Frederick and Eleanor, go to an orphanage to find a little brother for their son, George Little. While at it, they meet Stuart, a small but charming mouse, who apparently is, human civilized. And they adopt him. And everyone does love him. Although, George kind of takes some time to get used to him. Well, he doesn't like him at first, but he grows to appreciate him. But there is one problem in Stuart's life. The family cat, Snowbell, who wants him out. Because his jerk cat friends now view him as an embarrassment for being a pet to a mouse. But when trouble starts up almost immediately, Stuart must make it back to his home before Snowball's friends find out about him and try to eat him. So yeah, how is this made? Well, we all know this was a book written by E.B. White, and it never got a complete ending. And it was the last one he wrote before he died. Then this movie came out in 1999, literally nearly a whole decade, 2 decades after the 1973 animated Charlotte's Web movie, And it was done by Rob Minkoff and written by, ironically, soon-to-be director M. Night Shyamalan, which was very ironic. So after the film was shot and marketed, Stuart Little premiered in Westwood and Man Village Theatre on December 5th, 1999, and was released in the United States on December 17th, 1999, by Columbia Pictures. And the film received some how did it get received by critics? Well, it got received generally positive reviews from critics, and even got nominated for the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, but it lost to The Matrix. After its success, though, it was successful at the box office, and despite being a book-to-film adaptation, it got a sequel. It got a sequel, Stuart Little 2 in 2002, which was kind of more faithful to the book than this movie, and the short-lived television series 2003, and a shitty direct-to-DVD film called Stuart Little 3, Call of the Wild. And they would even Estelle Getty's final film role. Now, as for my reaction, well, let me say, I'm very excited to talk about this movie, because I've always loved this movie as a kid, and I'm finally excited to talk about it after waiting so long to do this, but I've been way too busy with other videos. Although I do like Stuart Little 2 a little more, that'll also get an Underrated Gems episode, but this was also pretty good as well. There's just lots of named actors are either in front of camera or being used as voices in this unique animated real-life film. They even use real people and animals except for fake mouths when the animals talk, and an animated mouse named Stuart, who is voiced by Michael J. Fox, and he looks very real life-like, done very well. And he's probably one of the best examples of a CGI live-action character done the right way. And when it comes to Michael J. Fox, guys, I've honestly always liked him as an actor. He's done some classic great movies like the Back to the Future trilogy, Teen Wolf, The Frighteners, and did some great voice acting like Chance in the Homeward Bound movies, and also as Milo in Disney's Atlantis The Lost Empire, and this franchise. Man, but sadly, it's very sad that he had to retire from live action roles when his career was finally taken off due to Parkinson's disease. Because this guy was clearly like a legend for 80s and 90s people. And I like that we're getting a documentary about his life this year. And I'm very excited to see that, because this guy seemed like a legend who shouldn't. And it sucks he had his live action career taken away from him too early. This movie's always been a childhood classic of mine. I'd watch it all the time as a kid, and when I watched it recently, my childhood just came back. I enjoy Stuart Little, as it's a very good family get-together movie. From the humor of the cast of the Warren family meets everything gestures of the film plays a strong asset to the movie. But although there is one annoying internet criticism that's kind of annoying me lately, everybody is now literally, whenever I see Stuart Little comments, they're just always like, "This movie sucks because the family adopts a mouse instead of a human kid." Yeah, sure, be a big fucking baby. All because a family adopted a mouse. It's a family movie. Oh my god. Family movies are not supposed to be realistic. Whatever happened to family movies just being family movies now? No, everybody's got to be right now. Everybody's always got to be reality. This criticism is so annoying. Why? If you don't like this criticism or like this movie, why did you even watch it? Then. It's not even funny. Probably it's about just as annoying as the I Hate Ice Age baby memes that PewDiePie made. And also, just be lucky they didn't go like how the book did it. And because how the book happens, Stuart's mother gives birth to him. Birth. At least just be grateful they didn't go that disgusting, creepy route. And just had him get adopted and actually be... So there's slightly more realism there. Okay? And when I watched the movie, none of the orphans seem upset that they didn't get picked. During the opening title sequence, they're literally waving bye to Stuart as he's leaving with them. They seem happy he got adopted, so... Because you can... It kind of hints they got along well with him. So... And probably even helps some of them get adopted, so... And the colors in this movie are also terrific, especially with that house that the Little family lives in. The story even has some clever stuff, but it's strictly played for laughs and reactions since credibility about zero in many parts of the story. And it's supposed to kind of be outrageous at times, like I don't think Gina Davis has really ever played a nicer role than this, and it was good to see. And husband was just as nice too, played very well by Hugh Laurie. And the little family is definitely the gentlest, most genial movie family in movies. Like, they live in this quiet house amidst the hustle and bustle of New York City life. They're the straight shooter like Frederick, understanding Eleanor, and spunky tyke George, was excited as could be the day his parents set out to adopt a new member of the family. And they go in hoping to walk out with the younger sibling, and they walk out with a somewhat younger sibling, very little one. Literally. This whole other creature. And just Stuart Little pays careful attention to little background details and cinematography, but refuses to shortchange the people in the story. In a screenplay written by Greg Booker and the unlikely M. Night Shyamalan is sensitive to the idea of sibling adoption and never seems to exploit the idea of turn into a laugh right. Libby White's original story sort of muted the concept. Its film counterpart puts on a more emphasis on this event. And there's a wide array of side character voices you're likely to pick up on. You got David Allen Greer, Charles Palminteri, and Steve Zahn are even among them. And cameos by Estelle Getty, rest in peace, Harold Gold, and Julia Sweeney. All the characters are portrayed under a wonderfully positive light, and the writing doesn't hesitate to take a dark turn and punctuate some rather depressing sequences with this delectably sweet interior. And there's definitely a world for. I wish there'd be a world for films today, like with Stuart Little, and the more jolly world for more films to be like Stuart Little. I wish this is a completely acceptable, wonderfully told spin on the New Brother formula. And it's simple and short, to the point, and feel good throughout. There's not really too much dull moments in this flick. There's always something going on, and it's definitely a rewatchable film anybody could enjoy. And the actors' action or voiceover do well with their parts, and there's a lot of known faces in the film, so that's just good. And CGI effects are stunning. Stuart looks very lifelike, and not all overly creepy, like a lot of these CGI abominations in these soul fish out of water stories today. Like, no, they actually made him look very well. Here is for a CGI live action film. Like, they actually made him look like a mouse. He doesn't have all these buggy CGI eyes. He's not ugly like the Smurfs and Alvin and the Chipmunks or the Ninja Turtles from Michael Bay. No, he actually looks like a more proper mouse with a CGI mouth and some anthropomorphic human walking abilities here. And it's a one. Yeah, even the cats look pretty good too. They're pretty much the real thing, and there are definitely some storylines jammed to this 85-minute extra Gazavanza, because like Stuart wants to learn about his natural parents, the family cat wants him killed, and the parents want Stuart and George to get along. The way most of it plays out will come off as a standard movie fare, predictable to those who are around 10 years old. Perhaps, but the winning charm of Fox is the lovable Stuart coupled with an engaging and appealing cast of characters makes up for any familiarity you might feel. On top of it all, the special effects, like the filmmakers even realized that making Stuart look real was essential to the movie's success and spared little expense. And approximately half of the film's $60 million budget went to Stuart himself. And the results are phenomenal. You can see each individual hair on his face. His movement is amazingly fluid, and when he talks, you forget he's animated, and the same techniques are even utilized to make the film's felines talk. The on-screen performances are even really great. And keep in mind that Hugh Laurie, Gina Davis, and Jonathan Lipnicki all had to work with thin air, literally. As Stuart was the CGI character, he'd later be brought to the big screen through post-production, and as all the on-screen actors had to work with what was like a replica doll of Stuart, and had to do the actual take with just them imagining he was there on the set, so it's pretty impressive. It's something that's even what they would have to work with the majority of the film. And also, the score by Alan Silvestri. The score by Alan Silvestri is incredible. And I felt the score truly brought Stuart Little to life, and made all these small-sized adventures seem more grand and captivating than originally thought. Now, some may say the scoring gets somewhat overly whimsical at times, however, but I thought the score was perfect for this film, and it really stands out during the Central Park boat race. Now, Alan Silvestri has performed scores for many films, including a lot of Robert Zemeckis productions, including the Back to the Future trilogy, Forrest Gump, Cast Away, and the first two Predator films, and not to mention a couple Marvel films like The First Avenger and The Avengers. And the direction of Rob Minkoff is great too. Like, some of the action scenes in the film, including the Central Park boat race and a car chase happens later on in the film, are very well shot, and considering how daring these events must be for a mouse like Stuart's. And heck, you did get some good character development from them. Like, for the characters. I like how the parents are really protective and worried for Stuart's concern, and they're quick to love him straight away. They're the quickest to get used to him. Once they adopt him and they bring him to the house. However, we all know George is just not too happy. with his brother being a mouse and doesn't really take him seriously at first. But then eventually, after being chased into his room by Snowbell, him and George do finally start to get along more. Like when they play with some of George's little replicas, like the train, like a very funny moment with the train where Stuart pretends to be tied up with his tail, and then as the train comes by, he then frees himself, and George even shows him this car that he can fit in, that he actually fits into, very well because it's toy sized and yeah, and of course, and also shows him the boat he never finished for the boat race, and then him and George finally do start to get along when they finish it together here. And when Stuart accidentally breaks George's remote at the actual boat race, he decides to actually drive George's boat himself into the race. And heck, George, and like when this bully tries to pretty much crush Stuart with his boat, like George pretty much gives the bully his compounds and pretty much like tackles him, like kind of showing his character development has really grown. He's now grown to appreciate Stuart as his brother more. And of course we all know his fake parents basically kidnap him under Snowbell's orders when they arrive when they're celebrating their success. George does not want him to leave at all here. And it kind of does complete George's character development. He's finally accepted Stuart as a brother here, and it's perfect here. There's plenty of good character development from most of the characters here too, and the rest of the voice casts are great too. Nathan Lane as the voice of Snowbell is again another great casting choice, and he brings like much charm as this reluctant, over melodramatic feline. And Steve Zahn as Monty the Alley Cat even brings a lot of wisecracking humor to the role. But yeah, as we all know, I can agree with some nitpicks here. Some of the dialogue can be a little bit odd at times. Like there's this scene where before I forget to that, and you even do get a few crude humor jokes, like Snowbell's quote, "Talk to the butt," or Stuart burps bubbles after being rescued from the washer. And this actually feels like this was back when adult humor was actually innocent and just light little tiny moments in kids' films. Unlike most of the ones today where we have a stupid adult sex joke or penis joke. No, this was back when adult jokes were innocent in the kids' films. But yeah, back to the nitpicks. Some of the dialogue is a little bit odd. Like, you have this scene where Mr. Little and George are preparing their boat for the Central Park boat race, and George is unsure about the boat race, and Mr. Little asks if George is okay, and George says he wants to go home. Then Mr. Little asks why, and George says he forgot to bring his lucky underwear. Well, then again, this was back when adult jokes were innocent and stuff. But I don't know whether that was just meant to be funny, but to me, it's kind of a little strange piece of dialogue. But this movie's written by M. Night Shyamalan, so I really shouldn't be surprised one bit. And the other complaint is, it can be a little unbelievable at times, even though this is a family movie. But in real life, how would a mouse walk around New York without getting stepped on by a foot of a human? And yeah, it can be weird how you adopt a mouse to your son, take him home on the same day, but I don't nearly mind it as much as so many people do. And how come cars and boats are operational with inner working parts without the use of an RC steering wheel and batteries? But you really do have to go into this film with as little suspension of disbelief as possible, and have to try to ignore reality to be able to enjoy a family movie like this, because this is supposed to be a family movie, and family movies aren't really supposed to be realistic. So it makes sense for this movie not to be realistic. Otherwise, you'd just probably hate this movie for how unbelievable it is. It's just one of those films where you have to turn off your mind and just kind of enjoy. And I do like Nathan Lane's voice acting as Snowbell, but I think Snowbell's kind of an asshole in this movie. He does have funny moments, thanks to some great voice acting from Nathan Lane, but most of the movie he's just a dick to Stuart, all because he's a mouse, and just comes up with like really cruel ways to break up the family, like have these mice pose as their parents and just to basically snatch him, or even arrange his presence so his cat buddies can kill him. But thankfully though, he also does get good character developments, because after this lie he makes to get Stuart out of the house, he finally realizes how selfish he acted and stuff, and finally accepts Stuart as part of the family, and then returns to save him from the cats by knocking the cats into the water, which was definitely pretty funny. And in return, Stuart saves him from the cat leader, which was played by Chaz Palminteri, and it brings me to another nitpick. The leader of the alley cats, named Smokey, is the main villain of this, and he's just not that memorable. There's just not much memorable things about his character. He's just kind of an evil alley cat, and that's just about it. There's not much motivation. Just doesn't feel that memorable to me. It just kind of felt just one note and generic. Because the only motive he has is just to eat Stuart, and that's it. But Stuart also knocks Smokey into the water, same way the cats fell into the water. And it all turns out good in the end. And then it's a perfect way. And then they perfectly go home. They reunite with the rest of the Littles. And he's like says fairy tale. And Stuart like says something like, "I don't believe in fairy tales." And it's a great ending shot as they go back home. George shuts the blinds. The end on the screen. Perfect ending to this movie right here. There's no other forced dialogue, no forced aftermath here. It actually just ends right there. And we end with this very great montage of him and George finally bonding properly like brothers. Like during the montage there, though, we actually start... Yeah, they actually now start to bond a little more properly. Like during the credit montage with the 1 plus 1 is 2 song playing over the credits. Great ending to this movie, and a great ending to this chapter. So yeah, the bad qualities don't matter because I still think Stuart Little is an underrated gem. In the end, I would definitely recommend Stuart Little as a watch and buy for 90s family movie fans that want to see family movies back when they were done right. Anyways, that's it for my review of Stuart Little. Wondering how I'm going to rank Stuart Little? Here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you are a fan of E.B. White and want to escape from reality or want a great movie for your children, then I would definitely recommend watching and buying this movie for your collection for sure. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Stuart Little, I'm going to give Stuart Little a 7.5 out of 10. There we go. That pretty much wraps up my review for Stuart Little. And you're probably all going to be wondering, what's going to be the next one? Well, the next one's going to be another Underrated Gems episode because the next review, I want to talk about the sequel, Stuart Little 2, before I go back to the Spider-Man review series. And, yeah, I'm also excited to talk about Stuart Little 2 because Stuart Little 2 is my favorite of this series. But until then, guys, that'll be it for this Underrated Gems episode. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.